All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Esoteric Lighthouse. I'm Michael Williams, and tonight we got a special treat for you. We got our own brother, uh, Mr. Man, the myth, the legend, John B. Love. Hopefully, Senate candidate. Oh, actually, no, he is. He's going to be our senator one day. But all right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Esoteric Lighthouse. I'm Michael Williams, and tonight we got a special treat for you. We got our own brother, Mr.
It's coming out of AS.
And we got feedback. Sorry about that again. All right. So again, our brother John B. Love the third. He's going to be going over a unique topic that many of us are going to be here learning. Is over alchemy and the Lambdoma. Again, we are a group of free and accepted Masons of Masonic jurisdictions, and in which we hold affiliate. This show is not a representation of any Grand Lodge, Grand Master, or any Masonic bodies we hold affiliation with. Again, thank you. And John, it's all yours.
All righty. I need to be able to share my screen. So can someone allow me to help me to do that?
You should be good, sir.
Okay, there we go. Yes. Okay. This is not what I want to share. Give me a second. I'll get it. Okay, here we go. All right. I'm John B. Love III, and I'm here today to talk to you about understanding alchemy for personal transformation by using the Lambdoma. Okay, so there are many disciplines that I call the soul sciences. These sciences are used to develop and elevate the human soul. Alchemy is one of those sciences. The common understanding of alchemy, of turning lead into gold, is symbolic of the elevation of the soul from a lower state to a higher state. This lecture will be different than most because there won't be any references for you to look up and research, but there will be thought exercises for you to prove, similar to the discipline of geometry. So the soul is not documentable. You can only read and research to a certain point. And every religion and discipline talks about the soul, but it is not defined in the physical world. You can't footnote or discover its source in writing, but you can discover its source in symbols. I'm intentionally leaving this research information out because I want you to focus on using the Lambdoma instead of focusing on its historical context. For example, I can tell you that the Pythagoreans considered this one of their most important symbols upon which they took their oaths. I could then provide a footnote to a book that documents this as fact, but again, it's not the historical documentation that I'm going to be talking about. All of this lecture will be theoretical, causing some to believe or disbelieve. My goal is not to convince you, but to show you. A symbol should be able to convey meaning and understanding to any person wise enough to comprehend them at any period of time. After all, this is how symbols are supposed to work. They're supposed to be universal. Now, there are many different Lambdoma strategies that are out there. I will be sharing a popular one among adepts. However, you can create your own. Sometimes, according to the adepts, that may be better for you. Now, just like memorizing catechism can help expand your mental capacity, studying the Lambdoma will help you expand your being. Here then are the fundamentals of the Lambdoma to help you get started understanding, applying, and creating your own. The secrets of the universe are not written down in words, but are written in symbols. So let's get started. In the beginning of this lecture, I want to give you some definitions of some terms that I will be using. Oops. I need to go back. There we go. Sorry about that. I want to explain to you in easy to understand terms what the following words mean for this lecture: spirit, soul, body, active, and passive. These words you hear a lot when you study esoteric disciplines. So I hope these definitions will help you in your studies. We'll use the discipline of art to define all 5 of these concepts. So imagine an artist painting upon a canvas or a sculptor molding a piece of work out of clay. The artist represents spirit. The process of painting or molding is soul, and the canvas or clay is the body. The artist acting upon the medium is active, and the medium receiving the vision of the artist is passive. Simply put, active is making it happen, passive is letting it happen. So the artist, spirit, creates, active, a process, soul, that is received, passive, by the medium, body. Esoterically, active is symbolized by male images and is called, of course, masculine, while passive is symbolized by female images and is called feminine. Again, active means to act or make it happen, and passive means to not act or let it happen. So now on to the Lambdoma after we've had these definitions. A Lambdoma is a tetractys. A tetractys is a series of 10 dots in the shape of a pyramid with 1 dot centered above 2 dots, which are centered above 3 dots, which are centered above 4 dots. A Lambdoma is formed when you replace the dots with numbers or symbols. So we're going to be dealing with 2 Lambdoma, a numerical Lambdoma and an alchemical Lambdoma. Starting at the number 1 at the top, on the next line is the number 2 on the left and the number 3 on the right. On the next line below that is the number 4 on the left, the number 6 in the middle, and the number 9 on the right. And the line below that on the far left is the number 8, on the middle left is the number 12, on the middle right is the number 18, and on the far right is the number 27. The numerical Lambdoma helps us understand the alchemical Lambdoma, and when used together gives insight into your being and how you work. so that you can understand self and have control over self. So I've described the symbols in the numerical Lambdoma. Now let's go over the symbols in the alchemical Lambdoma. At the top where the number 1 would be, many different symbols can be used. The most common is the circle with a plus sign inside, a horizontal and a vertical line. Sometimes you may see other symbols in its place. Next, on the second line on the left side where 2 would be is the moon, Luna. On the right where 3 would be is the sun, Sol, the point within the circle. This second line represents duality. On the line below that, on the far left, where the number 4 would be, you have a circle with a horizontal line in it, which is salt. In the middle, where 6 would be, you have the symbol of Mercury, which is a crescent surmounting a circle, surmounting a cross, a plus sign. The symbol of Mercury is the alchemical symbol. Next on the right, where 9 would be, you have sulfur, an upward pointing triangle surmounting a cross. This third line represents triplicity. And then on the next line below that is a series of triangles representing the elements. On the far left, where 8 would be, is a downward pointing triangle with a line drawn through it representing earth. Next to it on the middle left, where the number 12 would be, is a downward pointing triangle with no line drawn through it, which represents water. Next to it on the middle right, where the number 18 would be, is an upward pointing triangle with a line drawn through it, which represents air. And then where the number 27 is located on the far right is an upward pointing triangle with no line drawn through it, which represents fire. The fourth line represents quadruplicity. Say that 5 times fast. That is the alchemical Lambdoma. Now, hear what those symbols mean specifically. Unity. The reason this symbol can be interchanged is because this is a dynamic of the creative process. It works always and anyways or infinite ways. It's incorrect, sorry for the typo, to say both ways because it's not linear. Although sometimes it would appear to be so. That is why it can be the Most High, but it also can be an inanimate object, a particular desire, an outcome, or a prayer. Duality. On the next level is the moon and the sun. The moon on the left represents the subconscious, and the sun represents the conscious, the feminine, and the masculine. As I gave this lecture, you hear my words and see the images. We are experiencing conscious. When we dream while we sleep, or maybe in deja vu, or in a daydream, we experience our subconscious. Subconsciousness and consciousness, the feminine and the masculine. The next line below that, we have the triune of salt, mercury, and sulfur. These three have so many symbolic meanings, it's literally possible for me to cover them all. I'll try to give you a few examples of their meaning for understanding. And with that and your own discovery, you will be able to better comprehend these symbols. So salt, mercury, and sulfur can represent past, present, future. It can represent cardinal, fixed, mutable, or in other words, a current state, a transition state, and a desired state. These last few examples are like past, present, and future, but with ideas or objects. The next level below that are, of course, the elements: earth, water, air, and fire. Earth represents the physical body, the senses of man. Water represents the emotions of man. Air represents the thoughts of man. And fire represents the intuition, desire, the yearning of man. Now, we're given the clue about the elements that the earth doesn't actually represent earth, water doesn't actually represent water, air doesn't actually represent air, and fire doesn't actually represent fire. That is true. I've already told you what they actually represent just a moment ago. But you can view the elements as the state of matter, being that they are on the fourth line, symbolic of the physical realm, by its cubic representation, which we will see later. Earth represents solids, water represents liquids, air represents gases, and fire represents plasma energy. On a side note, interestingly, the sublime degree of Master Mason, I believe, is called the sublime degree because the word sublime is the adjective form of the word sublimation, which is an alchemical process or a chemical process that means passing from a solid state to a gas state without passing through the liquid state. In other words, from the physical to the mental state. So let me go back one. And you can see in this picture right there between solid and gases, going from a solid to gas is indeed called sublimation. So those are the symbols of alchemy. That's how the alchemical tetractys looks, or alchemical lambdoma. Notice that as I went through the four levels, it gives understanding to how the Pythagoreans viewed the first four numbers. 1 is unity, 2 is duality, 3 is trinity, triplicity, 4 is quadruplicity. Now, we must go back to the numerical lambdoma to understand how that works, and then apply that to the alchemical lambdoma to understand how it works. So remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 9, 8, 12, 18, 27. The key to this is to break the numbers down into components of the Trinity, of which the Mother and the Father are a part. And this is done in nature, 1 separating itself into 2, which then becomes 3. 1 is 1. It is everything united. It is the mother and the son. It gives birth and it is born again. 2 being feminine and 3 being masculine, as mother and father, they have children. These children are represented on the lines below. So here's a quick interjection of geometry. You have a point to a line to a surface to a solid. These are the dimensions of geometry of the universe. A point is that which has no length and width or height. It is defined by 1 point, and the number 1 represents the point. When that point moves, motion occurs, it then comes down the second level of the lambdoma. So if you take your finger and make a point and then move your finger, you draw a line in the air. A line is that which has length but no width or height. It takes 2 points to define a line. The numbers 2 and 3 represent the line. The numbers 2 and 3 on the lambdoma represent the line. If you take that imaginary line and move it down or up, you have created a surface. A surface is that which has length and width but no height. It takes 3 points to define a surface. The numbers 4, 6, and 9 represent the surface. When the surface moves, it comes down to the fourth level of the Lambdoma. So if you take that plane and move it away from you or towards you, then you're creating a solid, a cube. A solid is that which has length, width, and height. It takes 4 points to define a solid. The numbers 8, 12, 18, and 27 on the fourth line of the Lambdoma, numerical Lambdoma, represent the solid, physical. So going from 0 dimension, nothing, to first dimension, which is the second line, 2 and 3, to the second dimension, which is the third line, 4, 6, and 9, to the third dimension, which is the fourth line, 8, 12, 18, and 27. Now, earlier I referred to 0 dimension, but that is not accurate because of how we view the number 0 today. We view 0 as above 1, and before 0 is a whole bunch of negative numbers, and after 0 is a bunch of positive numbers, or what we call integers. But the ancients didn't view it that way. 1 was the supreme number. They placed the number either above 1 or below 1 to create a fractional system. A negative number would not make sense to them. So it's not correct to say it's the 0 dimension. It's more accurate to say it's the prime dimension, or the originator, or God, or whatever you want to call it. Now, another key to the numerical Lambdoma is by going down the left leg and the right leg of the Lambdoma. The left leg is the feminine side, and the right leg is the masculine side. The number 2, feminine, the number 3, masculine. Also, the extremes on the legs, on the far sides of the legs on the third level are squared surfaces, and on the fourth level are cubed solids. So on the third level, the number 4 is 2 times 2, which is 2 squared. It's 2 parts feminine. Salt is 2 parts passive. On the far right, we have 9, which is 3 times 3, which is 3 squared. It's 2 parts masculine. Sulfur is 2 parts active. In the middle, between the 4 and the 9, we have the number 6, which is 2 times 3. 6 is part feminine and part masculine. So Mercury, the hermaphrodite, is 1 part passive and 1 part active. 1 part letting it happen, 1 part making it happen. This suggests, of course, that salt is purely feminine squared, that sulfur, which is purely masculine squared, and that Mercury, the hermaphrodite, both male and female, is 2 times 3. Salt is pure subconscious, sulfur is pure conscious, and Mercury is both subconscious and conscious. So let's go down the level. On the fourth level, we have 8, the number 8, which is 2 times 2 times 2. It is feminine cubed. It's 3 parts feminine. Earth, or physical senses, is 3 parts feminine. Senses are 3 parts passive, letting it happen. Water, next we have 12, which is 2 times 2 times 3. It has 2 parts feminine and 1 part masculine. So water, or emotions, is 2 parts feminine, 1 part masculine. Emotions are 2 parts passive and 1 part active. Again, don't think of male or female or man or woman. We're talking about states of being. Excuse me. Next, we have 18, which is 2 times 3 times 3. It is 1 part feminine and 2 parts masculine. So air or thinking is 1 part feminine, 2 parts masculine. Air is 1 part passive and 2 parts active. Then we have the number 27, which is 3 times 3 times 3. It's 3 cubed. Fire is 3 parts masculine energy. Intuition, desire is 3 parts active. So again, intuition or desire is all active. Thinking is mostly active. Emotions are mostly passive, and sensing is all passive. Oops, my bad. Okay. When you have the lambdoma, both the alchemical symbols and the numerical symbols, you start to see amazing relationships. You start to see the relationships between the numbers, not just the point, line, surface, and solid, but you see a vertical pattern and duplication of a duplicate of multiplication. 1 and 2 and 3 create a small triangle, 1 at the top, 2 on the bottom left, and 3 on the bottom right. Now, if you take those 3 numbers and go to any other number in the lambdoma, you'll have the exact same relationship. For example, if I take the 3 numbers 1, 2, and 3 and place it where the numbers 6, 12, and 18 are located, then automatically the 6 is the 1, the 12 is the 2 because 2 times 6 is 12, just like 2 times 1 is 2, and 18 is 3 because 3 times 6 is 18. Same thing with 4, 8, and 12, or 9, 18, and 27. So you can take this very far as you can create lambdomas. It's an excellent way to multiply big numbers and of understanding their relations. They all have this mini relationship, including the symbols. So emotions are mostly feminine with a little bit of masculinity, and thoughts are mostly masculine with a little bit of feminine energy. This is key because it gives us the ability to understand and realize that our emotions can be passive, but there's an active component to them that we as the artist can act upon and control and shape and mold. Same thing with our thoughts. Thinking is an active process with a little passiveness. So again, going down the left leg of the lambdoma, you have the square of cube for a square of 2, excuse me, which is 4, and the cube of 2, which is 8. And then going down the right leg of the lambdoma, you have the square of 3, which is 9, and then the cube of 3, which is 27. So down the left side, we have feminine surface and feminine solid. It's earth giving us a third dimension reality of our bodies or bodies. The same thing is down the right side. When we have 3 squared, that is a surface of an active and masculine process. And when we have 3 cubed, 27, we have an active body. So within this, the lambdoma, the Nikola Tesla number secrets of the universe are in the lambdoma, right? The 9, the 3, the 6, and the 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. They're all right here in this lambdoma and give great insight. The generation of this world as seen on the far left by the exhibit of the geometric sequence of doubling from unity. So over here on the far left, you've got 1 and descending goes to, you double it, it becomes 2, double it becomes 4, double it becomes 8, becomes 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, so on. Now, through theosophical reduction, which is the name given to the process of adding up digits of a number repeatedly until you get a single digit, we will see how this repetition occurs, right? So 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 1 plus 6 is 7, 32, 3 plus 2 is 5, and then it repeats. 6 plus 4 is 10, 1 plus 0 is 1. 128, 1 plus 2 plus 8 is 11, 1 plus 1 is 2. 256 becomes 4, 512 becomes 8, 24, excuse me, becomes 7, and 248 becomes 5. This repeats ad infinitum all the way down on the left side. That's the feminine side. I like to look at it as the world in which we're in. There's some feedback from somebody's microphone. Next, we have the 3-6 alternating current or duality that separates us from the rest of the universe. The numbers alternate like an alternating current between 3 masculine and 6 feminine. So starting here with 3, right? And you double, right? Because you're going to the left. When you're going to the left, you're doubling. When you're going to the right, you are triplicating. So going to the left from 3, 3, and then you have 6, you double that, and that's 12, and 1 plus 2 is 3. And you double 12, it becomes 24, and 2 plus 4 is 6. And then 48 is 3, and then 96 is 6, and then 192 is 3, and then 384 is 6. The rest of the universe is the active creation of 9, right? So most of the universe, let me go back. Yeah, the numbers alternate between 3 and 9. This is what I wanted to key on, that this alternating current, it separates us from the rest of the universe, right? So if the left side, the female side, is the manifest universe, then the one right next to it, the 3, 6, 12, 24, the alternating current separates us from the rest of the universe. And the rest of the universe undoubtedly is made up of 9s. Most of the numbers in this Lambdoma reduce to the number 9, right? So starting with 9, you have all these numbers down here going this way, add up to 9. 18, 1 plus 8 is 9, 2 plus 7, 3 plus 6, 5 plus 4, 8 plus 1, 7 plus 2, 1, 0, and 8. All these numbers all the way down are 9. The universe is made up mostly of masculine or active energy, intuition, desire. So now that you've got the Lambdoma and you've learned it, here are some thought exercises that you can do on your own. Flipping cubes, cubes seen versus cubes unseen, rotation, and then the tree of life. So let's look at these. With flipping cubes, right? I think most people have done this, has seen a Lambdoma or a Star of David and seen the cube represented in 2 dimensions. And so you have actually 2 cubes. You have a cube that's facing the feminine direction, where the moon, the sun, Mercury, and salt make the top. And then the salt, Mercury, air, and water make one side, where Mercury, the sun, sulfur, and air make up another side. But if you shift the cube and shift your perspective to the right, we have a cube pointing to the masculine side, the active side, where instead of the moon and the sun and Mercury and salt being the surface, the top surface, we have the moon, the sun, sulfur, and Mercury making up the top surface, where you have the sides defined by Mercury, sulfur, air, and water at the bottom, and then moon, Mercury, water, and salt representing the other side. So again, remember that those four arrangements there, it's a cube in 3 dimensions. So you're defining sides or surfaces depending on which direction you're facing, depending if you're reacting or if you're being active. Next, we have, I think I may have skipped one. Let me go see if I can go back. Yeah, cube seen versus unseen. So this cube represented in 2 dimensions, you only see 3 sides of it, right? So if you take the cube and look, and doesn't matter which direction, if you had the cube facing to the right, then the cube that faces to the left is the unmanifested side, the side that you can't see, right? So the cube facing to the right, you see those sides. I defined them earlier. That's what you can actually see. That's the manifest side. Whereas what is behind it would be the cube facing to the left. If you take it and mentally go through and imagine the back of that cube, I know it's 3 dimensions and 2, but the back of that cube will be represented by the opposite cube. The masculine behind it is the feminine, and the feminine behind it is the masculine. And then another thought exercise you can do is you can rotate the lambdoma, where over here on the left, I've rotated. So I've got at the top, your physical senses. And at the bottom left, I've got fire, which is your intuitive desire. And on the right, I have unity. And then if I rotate it again, I have at the top now fire, intuitive desire. And at the bottom left, I have the monad. And then on the bottom right, I have the physical senses or earth. So these are things that you can do and then relate them to your being, your thoughts, your emotions, your desires, what you're sensing, your past, present, and future, your beginning, your middle, your ending, or your consciousness, or your subconsciousness. You can use all these things to create and develop and explore self. And then I briefly showed this earlier. This is the tree of life and the correspondence between the tree of life and the Lambdoma. And I love this picture because, some of you may be familiar with Dronvalo Melchizedek, who talks about the Merkaba, the spinning tetrahedrons, one pointing up and one pointing down. And so I kind of see, sometimes you'll see the tree of life superimposed upon the human body. Well, this is a way in which you can experience that, as well as what Dronvalo Melchizedek is talking about. And so that you see that the base, Malkuth, with the plus sign in it, is the one in the center of the Lambdoma. And then the bottom triad, the black dots, represent 2, 9, and 12, where they would be. And then the next triad up represents 3, 4, and 18. And then the top triad, all triangles, white triangles, represents, of course, a 1, 8, and 27. So those are some of the things that you can do with this information within your own being, your own thought process, to further explore yourself and to create as we are made in the Creator's image. And so by using these symbols and understanding these processes and practice and developing these vehicles and understanding their relationships, we can start to gain dominion over physical self and then rise above these bodies to a higher state, which is what the esoteric teachings are all about. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to bring this information. I have used this and found this to be very helpful in my life. Laying designs upon the trestle board. Nothing is created, nothing is comes into existence and into being without it coming from an originator and passing through a point a line, a surface, and a solid as it becomes reality. So thank you, Esoteric Lighthouse. I'm excited to be a part of this organization and appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brother John B. Love III, KYCH 33rd degree. I applaud you, brother. And I do apologize. We did not give you a proper introduction because we were already running 5-10 minutes late. But you are a man that goes without saying. Your resume is endless. You have achieved so much. And I appreciate you coming on today and giving us this exquisite lecture, man. My mind is blown. And I'm pretty sure everybody's salivating at the bit to get around the horn and say something because we all got something to talk about. And I have so many questions. So this was good stuff, sir. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you.
So we'll let the panel open up and y'all can have at it.
Yes, good evening again. Thank you, sir. Again, like I said, I want to apologize for messing up the introduction on you, but this was an outstanding presentation. It's so much information in here, and you guys know how I am about numbers and things. I start seeing different degrees, different houses, and it's just like I finally could put things together that it was like these were the things that have glue. This is the glue that bonds all these different degrees together, what you just presented tonight, the Lambdoma. And if you understand your degrees and what you're looking at, you probably like me right now. And you're like, so in that degree, this is what that number means. You start seeing different correlations with the numbers, the 3, 6, 9s and the 4, all these different things. I'm like, okay, so now that's masculine, that's feminine. So now I got to go back and I got to study pretty much every degree in masonry all over again, just because of this show tonight. I want to say thank you again, sir.
Thank you. My pleasure. My pleasure.
I think the first question I have is when you were talking about the first picture of the Lambdoma and you traversed in going down from 1 all the way down to 27. Is there an explanation to invert that? I know you showed us how you can turn it in a multidimensional fashion and you can kind of superimpose that on how you practice the Lambdoma. But if someone were to keep it as the monad at the top, how could you explain going from the bottom up from the way you had the symbology at the bottom of the Lambdoma?
So it flows downward, but when you turn it on its side, then you're flowing from a different beginning. So when you're flowing from the top, the monad, the one, right, it's flowing down, everything is flowing correctly. Sometimes though, we flow down from our senses or our feelings, or other times we flip it again, we flow down from our intuition and our desire. So these are just 3 different states in which you can do the same thing, but just start from a different point, right? So if you remember one of the last images I showed, it talked about how the universe is mostly intuition and desire, which is a really big key, that this is a thought process, is an active world, and that to make things come into existence and being, it's really mostly intuition and desire. That's where it comes from. And so creating things there in that archetype allows it to transition to the alternating current of 3-6 coming through duality and manifesting in the feminine world. And so things are birthed into being through the Tesla 124875. I hope I answered your question.
You did. I guess for me, how do we relate the numbers, the numerology piece, to the practice that you've imposed? Because We saw one with the symbols, and then we saw one with the numbers. So why the
That's very, very good. So one of the things I did not cover in this, let me go back to that and share my screen again. Hope I can start this over. Give me just a second. Sorry about that. So let me just see if I can scroll and find that screen right quick, or any of them. Okay, here's a good one. So if you'll remember, and I apologize for not making this clear, the 1, 2, and 3, you can take that anywhere on the Lambdoma, right? And so the moon right here, the 2, 4, and the 6, and then the moon, the salt, and Mercury. That salt derives its essence from the moon, just like Mercury derives its essence from the moon. But Mercury also derives its essence from the sun as well, right? So they're related. So let's look at the level below, and where water is, the downward pointing triangle. It is a result of salt and Mercury, right? Of a beginning state and a state of flux is where your emotions are. So next to it, thinking, the upward pointing triangle with a line through it, it is a part of, it gets its origin from Mercury coming from the left down to thoughts, thinking, and sulfur coming down from the right. And so just like the ones below are born from the ones above are their parents, is a better way to, I guess, to explain it. So that salt and Mercury are the parents of water, and Mercury and sulfur are the parents of thought, whereas intuition, fire, is just pure sulfur, right? It's a single parent. And sensing is just pure salt. And so consciousness up here where this point within the circle is part Mercury, the communicator, and part sulfur. And as we take conscious down to the surface into the cube, we have that desire, right? Which desire results from a conscious process. You know, I want this to be. And the true is on the opposite side, where you've got the moon, and salt descends from that, and of course your physical senses are passive. That the physical senses are reactionary, right? That, you know, they're just there until stimuli hits them, and then they react.
Okay.
John, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Brother O'Quinn.
No, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, so first of all, I'll say thank you for the presentation, my brother. I was sitting over here taking notes left and right. And since you were talking about the patterns that we see within the Lambdoma itself, I was also noticing that if you add 1 and 2, you get the 3, starting with that pattern, right? And that pattern repeats down into the 4 plus 8 equals 12. The 6 plus 12 equals 18, so on and so forth. So within it, you actually see kind of like a 1, and then you'll get your 2, your 3, and your 4 as far as the grouping of that pattern and the result. That was just one way that I was seeing it. Also noticing that the top part, we're talking about prime numbers, and below, all those numbers below are composites.
Yes. So another way to look at it is go take that, what you just said, up to the top, and you have Mercury, or a present state, combined with emotions, should be used or equals thought, or should be, how would we say, you should use thought thinking when you're having those two states. The same thing with sulfur and thoughts. A future state and thoughts is desire, right? I'm wanting this. I'm desiring that. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But I also
Lambdoma.
know,
Oh, go ahead.
So I
I'm
was
sorry.
just, as you were saying, gaining control over your thinking versus emotions, because so many people act, they're reactionary out of emotions versus using that, we always think of like the masculine, feminine, like we think of Hermes, right? We think of that physical representation of that, when actually what you're saying is you're taking those two processes, the both sides of the brain, and you're making decisions and understanding that you're actively creating these thoughts, and instead of just reacting and then saying, oh, later on I'm sorry.
So look where Hermes sits. Hermes sits right there in the middle, Mercury, where the number 6 is, right?
Mhm.
And in the Masonic Lodge, the junior warden represents Mercury, and he sits right there in the lodge. You've got the active, the feminine side of the lodge where the senior warden sits, and the active side of the lodge where the worshipful master sits, the masculine and the feminine. And right there on that line, the line of manifest, is where the junior warden sits. And I always like to joke around that, the worshipful master always just thinks he's the most important one in the room as consciousness, and his senior warden representing subconsciousness, where you have Mercury, which represents the communication between the two. Mercury was known as the communicator of the gods. He would relay, she would relay messages to all the others. And so you see, sitting right there in the center of the triangle, he very well can and is very well connected to the rest of the symbols.
And when you look directly above it, what do you see? You see the monad. And if you look at the layout of the lodge, where's the altar? This would, and what's the monad? What does it all represent? And some head busting information right here today. I have one question. When you were speaking upon the universe as being active and passive, and yeah, that one right there. So basically, you're saying that everything is 90% mental.
That's a good number. 90%. Yes.
90% mental. And the visible universe is only 10% of what's going on. So all these stars, planets, galaxies, everything, that's only 10% of the universe. And we don't even understand that.
I would say 99% versus 1%, right? It's like, the duality, Boaz and Joachim. B is the second letter of the alphabet, and Joachim is the 10th letter of the Hebrew alphabet, right? 2 and 10, representing that duality. And of course, when you add them together, they become 3. So yes, you have, I know I got some IT brothers out there, and they see this number, man. I remember when it was, man, I got 16K. What? I'm flying with 16K. Y'all remember that? And now we're megabytes and gigabytes, but you see that even computers use this doubling, right? Doubling, or sometimes, as in Masonic catechism, we call it halving. Remain literate or having, where having it is the other way around, right? So if you use fractions and go backwards, 1/2, 1/4, 1/8, you'll see that those decimal points all add up, and it goes backward 1, 2, 4, 8, 7, 5. It's a repeating pattern of the manifest universe, and that buffer between it and the rest of the universe is duality, the repeating of 3, 6, 9. That alternating current that Nikola Tesla was talking about. And then, yes, this goes to ad infinitum. The majority of the rest of the numbers are 9.
Wow.
Oh, I just won again. Brother Love, I appreciate it. I'm laughing because Bonds and Williams and Errol, they seen one of the presentations I had for Zerubbabel. Now I got to go back and do some more work. So I appreciate it. you know what I mean? Like we're gonna have to have another conversation. I gotta add some stuff in here, but to me, it just represents there's a grand architect of the universe. I think this is the simplest thing to show, the most universal way of showing, like, hey, this just one. There's an architect, man. I don't understand how people can argue it at this point. But again, phenomenal lecture. I'm gonna listen to it 3 or 4 times over, and I appreciate you.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much.
All right. Last round for questions. Do we have any more questions in the chat?
Yeah, we did have one. It said, is it possible to change the orientation of a personal lambdoma so we can learn to flow from intuition, emotion, or etc.?
Yes. So what we also have to understand is that we're looking at this stuff in a 2-dimensional. I'm trying to explain dimensions in a 2-dimensional medium, right? Everybody sitting here is in 3D, right? But as we look at this, it's a surface, it's 2D. And so that's why I love this slide. Let me go back to it. This slide right here, because this slide helps you to conceive of the lambdoma in 3 dimensions, right? So earlier, excuse me, Coney, when you were talking about the rotation of it doesn't really matter, because if you're looking at it from the top down, what matters is right here in the middle, right? Which corresponds to the kingdom over here.
And the kingdom down at the bottom, Malkuth, when you look at it via the scope of the Parsafim, it's actually the Shekinah or the soul. So,
Wow.
Yes,
it's very slick.
Yes.
So literally many ways of this.
So literally just run, excuse me, running through this in your mind. The act of just contemplating these things, just like catechism, expands your mind to be able to memorize more information by just taking a surface, and looking at a particular problem using your subconscious, your conscious, and examining it, whatever it is, in the context of present and past. Right, that creates an entire surface, or a plane, right? I said surface, and surface was easier to deal with, but really, consider it a plane of existence, right? So, if you want to look at it as a more active, what I just described was passive. It's the cube pointing to the left. But if we take the cube pointing to the right, where we have the moon, our subconscious, the sun, our conscious, sulfur, which is the future state, and Mercury, which is the present state, that is a surface. Right, a plane of existence that you can take within those things that are within your being and focus and contemplate upon those and try to view your goal, destination through that. Right. So all I can say is it's ad infinitum, and you can take this and things that I haven't even thought of or haven't even occurred to me, I'm sure that you brothers will be able to find and develop from this simple. This is a reason why the Pythagoreans consider this their most sacred and heavily guarded secret.
Wow.
Well, it unlocks the universe.
Well, unfortunately, and as exciting as this topic is, we gotta wrap it up because we could go for hours on this topic. And yes. I saw so much allegory and symbology in this. I could go across all the degrees, man. This is great stuff. So we're gonna wrap it up, and I think we may want to come back in a couple of months and just have you do a part 2 to this, if you don't mind, illustrious brother. We'll chat more, and we're just gonna have closing remarks from everyone, and then we're gonna close out. All right. Mike, got anything you want to wrap up with, sir?
No, I just want to say thank you again, brother, Mr. KYCH 33rd degree. My fellow Texan. Now that I can officially say I'm a Texan because I've been here for 7 years now, going on 8.
Thank God.
So appreciate you, and look forward to seeing you in the future again. And then just for everyone, let you guys know, next month we're taking a summer vacation, so no show for us. We'll be back in August with a special treat from our own brother, illustrious 33rd degree Earl Simpson, and he's going to teach us about esoteric libraries and how to build our own.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. Good. Thank you, sir. Chris Louiselle, you got any comments, sir?
Nothing at all. You know, I'm going to show up for the librarian too.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Illustrious brother Stephen Barrett. What's up, man? You got anything, sir?
Man, first, I have this. If they see my symbol that I have back here, that's from illustrious Williams right there. So I appreciate it. But brother Love, again, thank you so much. There's a lot of stuff that we're gonna go over and we're gonna talk about. I got your number, so I apologize in advance for asking you a whole bunch of questions because it's coming.
Awesome. Awesome. Good stuff. Thank you. And last but not least, brother Christopher Leonard, man. Got anything you want to say, sir?
Oh, he said he did.
He probably double testing. All right.
No comments, brothers. This is an amazing lecture. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Okay. All right. Well, we thank everyone for viewing tonight. And again, like Mike said, come back in a couple of months. We got part 2 to this, and illustrious brother Earl Simpson as well. So stay tuned. Thank you again. Esoteric Lighthouse out.